You know the feeling, right? Like you set up your meditation cushion, maybe you light this really expensive sandalwood candle, you do all the breathing exercises.
Yeah, the whole routine.
Right, you go through all the physical motions of trying to find some sort of inner peace, but internally, your mind is still just this chaotic freeway of stress and
It's
anxiety.
incredibly frustrating.
It is. You're doing all the visible, spiritual mechanics, but the engine just absolutely refuses to start. And it leaves you wondering if you are just kind of going through the motions without actually understanding how any of the machinery works.
Well, and I mean, that is the defining frustration for pretty much anyone seeking deeper awareness, right?
Yeah.
We latch onto the props.
Yeah, the visible rituals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they're tangible. Like, we can buy them, we can put them on a schedule. But in doing so, we completely overlook the underlying physics of the actual practice.
And tearing down that exact facade is our mission for today's deep dive. We are looking at a deeply provocative session produced by Buddha's Practice, incorporated out of Australia.
Yeah, it's a fascinating source.
It really is. The main speaker is consultant Benny, and he's answering questions from a seeker of Buddhist teachings named Venerable Ivy. And the production notes also credit Notebook Dawn.
Right.
And let me tell you, consultant Benny does not pull any punches here. I mean, he strips all the romanticism entirely out of modern spirituality to look at the harsh, practical reality of ancient texts, specifically the thrice yearning and chanting and the Heart Sutra.
He really does. He's taking us way past that abstract mysticism to uncover what these ancient mechanics actually demand from you, like in your everyday life.
Exactly. So let's start with something incredibly common, burning a stick of incense.
Right. So the session begins by addressing this concept called the true incense of precepts and concentration. And Benny just immediately shatters the conventional understanding of this practice.
Which is what, exactly?
Well, when people hear that phrase, they almost universally assume the text is talking about the literal physical stick of incense they just lit in a bowl on their altar.
Right. I mean, that makes sense. It says incense.
Sure, but Benny argues that mistaking the physical incense for the real thing is just fundamentally missing the point. The physical stick it's just an environmental cue.
Okay, so a prop.
Basically, yeah. The actual mechanism that does the heavy lifting is what the texts call the 5-part Dharma body incense.
And those 5 parts are?
Right, so you're probably familiar with these elements. It's precepts, concentration, wisdom, liberation, and the knowledge and vision of liberation.
Right, right.
But Benny's point is that these aren't just conceptual ideals that you think about. They are the literal fuel for the process. They're the only elements that can generate a real shift in consciousness.
So it's an internal process.
Exactly. Ancient practitioners viewed this physical body like your specific body, speech, and mind as a crucible. Benny actually references the Taoist figure Lu Dongbin to emphasize this idea of internal alchemy. Like, you are the tripod cauldron.
Wait, I want to push back on this just a little bit. If the physical incense doesn't actually accomplish anything on a spiritual level, why did the tradition even keep it around? Like, is it just a psychological placebo for beginners?
Well, it is a focal point, right? It's a way to anchor a wandering mind. But Benny's critique is that practitioners confuse the anchor for the actual journey.
Oh, I see.
You aren't meant to just passively smell smoke in a room and, wait for enlightenment to spontaneously happen to you. You are meant to actively forge those 5 internal elements inside the furnace of your own existence.
Okay, that is a huge shift in perspective.
It really is. And Benny highlights this Chinese character, Fang, from the texts, which translates to release. It doesn't mean putting a stick into a burner.
Right.
It means taking the cultivated power of your concentration and wisdom and releasing it so that it permeates every single minute detail of your daily life.
Wow, so it shifts spirituality from this passive consumer experience, like buying the right incense, into a very active, honestly kind of exhausting internal cultivation. And if we are treating physical props as passive crutches, I mean, it forces us to ask what else we're diluting, right? And Benny argues we are doing the exact same thing to the historical texts themselves.
Yeah, he points out some massive historical misunderstandings just to illustrate this point.
Like what?
Well, for example, people reading the text often come across the name Shiri Yeshu, and lacking the proper context, they just assume this refers to the Buddha's wife, Yashodhara.
Oh, interesting.
But Benny corrects this, noting it actually refers to an early disciple named Yashas.
Right. Totally different person.
Exactly. And similarly, readers will encounter the phrase incense cloud canopy bodhisattva, and they picture one specific literal entity just floating up there in the sky.
Like a superhero or something.
Right, rather than what it actually means, which is countless practitioners who possess that five-part Dharma body we just talked about, protecting the world like a vast canopy.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for the listener here.
Go for it.
Isn't Buddhism fundamentally about the mind's intention? Like, if my mind is sincere and my intentions are pure while I'm practicing, why does the universe care about a historical vocabulary mistake? Isn't the whole point of the Dharma to look past the surface level words anyway?
Well, Benny delivers a very sharp warning for precisely that mindset. Sincerity without accuracy is essentially just enthusiastic ignorance.
Enthusiastic ignorance. Ouch.
Right. If you are reading words off a page without actually understanding their functional logic, he says you are just parroting, like a bird mimicking human speech.
Just making the sound.
Exactly. There's zero comprehension. And without comprehension, the karmic mechanics simply do not activate.
Because it's not a vocabulary test, it's an instruction manual.
Precisely. It's a manual. The story of Yashas matters deeply because of the structural precedent it sets.
Yeah.
Well, Yashas was the disciple who was saved simply by taking refuge. The text is using him to establish a baseline metric. It's essentially saying, if Yashas achieve liberation just through basic refuge, try to imagine the incomprehensible power of someone who has fully cultivated the five-part Dharma body.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So if you swap Yashas out for the Buddha's wife in your mind, you break the functional logic of the entire passage.
You're reading the manual, but you've fundamentally misunderstood what the gears are actually supposed to do.
Exactly.
So if absolute precision is the prerequisite to activate these teachings, what is the ultimate dilemma we're even trying to solve here? And Benny frames this using, honestly, an incredible metaphor about the ocean.
Yeah, he introduces the reality of what he calls the Saha karmic waves.
Right.
So the ultimate nature of the universe, what is often called the Sea of Awakening, is fundamentally empty. It is pure stillness. But ordinary people living in this specific reality, the Saha world, we do not experience that stillness.
We experience the waves.
Exactly. We are constantly rolling, constantly mutating through endless cycles of suffering.
And that's driven entirely by the momentum of our own past actions, right? Our karma.
Yes. Yet the crucial underlying insight here is that no matter how violently those waves crash, the fundamental nature of the water itself remains that empty stillness.
And Benny offers a highly pragmatic guide to actually dealing with this reality through the Pure Land method.
He does.
To put it in modern terms for everyone listening, if you are trying to cross an ocean, relying on your own unassisted strength, what he calls pure self-power, is basically like trying to swim across the Pacific.
Which is impossible.
Right. You might be an incredibly disciplined swimmer, but the terrifying caveat Benny points out is that swimming takes multiple lifetimes.
Yeah.
And if, in just one of those lifetimes, you lose your bearing or forget your goal, you drown.
You get pulled right under.
You get pulled under the karmic waves, and you are stuck in that bitter sea indefinitely. So his solution is remarkably blunt. Just get on the boat.
He is advocating for a reliance on Mahayana other power. And this is a concept that is so frequently misunderstood. People think of it as a form of spiritual laziness or like surrender.
Yeah, like a cheat code.
Right. But Benny frames it as intelligent leverage.
Let's drill down into the mechanics of that leverage. Because a lot of people might hear other power and think, oh, someone else is just magically erasing my karmic debt for me.
No, it doesn't erase the debt at all. It changes the environment where you process the debt.
Okay, unpack that.
Think about the physics of being in the water. When you are swimming, every single ounce of your energy goes toward just keeping your head above the surface. You're constantly battling the friction of the waves.
Just surviving.
Just surviving.
Yeah.
But when you rely on the boat of other power, you still have all your karmic baggage with you on the deck. But you are now standing on a stable platform.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
The waves can't pull you under anymore.
Yeah.
You can finally focus on the actual work of liberation rather than just fighting for survival in the water.
That is such a powerful image. And climbing onto that boat doesn't just change your physical location, right? It radically alters your internal climate.
Yes, exactly.
Which is what the texts describe as reaching the refreshing ground.
Right, the refreshing ground, Bodhisattva, or King Lang Di. And consultant Benny has to strip away the geographical literalism here again.
Because it's not a place.
No, this is not a vacation destination or a physical pure land you travel to after you die. It is a present internal state of being.
It is the state achieved when a practitioner entirely extinguishes the 5 fierce fires.
Right.
And again, you probably know these fires: greed, anger, ignorance, arrogance, and doubt. But I really want to pause on the word refreshing,
Okay.
because we hear that word today and we think of like an iced tea on a hot day or a spa treatment. But Benny describes this as the cessation of being actively tortured.
It's a very visceral description. Consider the physical reality of a severe fever. When you are burning with anger or arrogance, your mind is in a state of violent friction with reality.
You are literally consuming your own energy.
It is agonizing. The refreshing ground is the profound physiological and spiritual relief of that fever finally breaking.
The fever breaking.
Yeah, when those toxic fires are extinguished, you are no longer burning up from the inside. You achieve a state of ultimate coolness.
And when that internal temperature finally drops, Benny says you join the Prajna Assembly. You align yourself with profound, ultimate wisdom.
You are no longer thrashing around in the dark.
Right, you are navigating by the stars of ultimate truth.
And the most famous operating manual for maintaining that cool, profound state of wisdom is the Heart Sutra.
Which everyone had heard of.
Exactly. But before anyone rushes off to chant it, Benny throws up this massive roadblock. He frankly admits that the Heart Sutra is almost impossible to teach properly to the average person.
Which seems totally counterintuitive, right? Given how short and ubiquitous it is, you see it everywhere.
But Benny explains that its brevity is actually the core problem. It is a hyper-condensed summary of the ultimate truth, but it entirely lacks the deductive steps required to actually comprehend it.
He compares it to teaching advanced calculus to someone who doesn't even understand basic addition.
Right.
Like, if you haven't systematically studied the foundational texts, like the Shurangama Sutra, which meticulously builds that cognitive framework, teaching the Heart Sutra is useless, people just hear the sounds.
Exactly. The core practice of the Heart Sutra requires seeing the 5 skandhas, which are the components of our physical and mental existence, as entirely empty.
They have no physical entity.
Right. They don't arise and they don't cease.
It's the ultimate spiritual bumper sticker, right? Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. We've all heard it.
We have. But intellectually knowing the phrase is not the same as perceiving the reality. Truly seeing that emptiness eliminates all mental hang-ups. When there is nothing to cling to, there is absolutely no fear.
But Benny uses a brutally vivid metaphor for what happens when we don't realize this emptiness, when we just treat the sutra as, like, a nice poem.
Yeah, he says ordinary people are like individuals trapped in a dream state.
A literal dream.
Right. Inside the dream, nothing has actual physical substance.
Yeah.
It is entirely illusory. But the dreamer doesn't know that.
They think it's completely real.
So they get terrified by the nightmares, waking up with a racing heart. Or, on the flip side, they obsessively crave the sweet dreams, chasing phantom food, illusory status, fleeting pleasures. They are frantically reacting to phenomena that literally do not exist.
And Benny refuses to soften the blow here. I mean, he uses the Chinese phrase fan shen jingbing to describe this state. He is essentially calling it insanity.
Yeah, he is.
You are having a nervous breakdown over a hallucination.
And that's exactly it.
I have to admit, calling the average person insane just for caring about their daily life, like stressing over a mortgage, worrying about their kids, it feels incredibly harsh.
Usually spiritual teachings lean pretty heavily into gentleness and acceptance, Is that level of bluntness really necessary?
Well, the bluntness is a calibrated mechanism. Gentle nudges do not wake people up from deep physiological panic.
That makes sense.
Benny's language is designed to be a shock to the system. You have to realize that the threat isn't real to stop the physiological response. The goal isn't to make you feel bad.
Right.
The goal is to snap you out of the hallucination so you can finally stop screaming at shadows.
Because only then can you achieve ultimate nirvana. Which, by the way, Benny clarifies, isn't just a blank void of nothingness. He describes it as the state of constancy, bliss, self-purity. It is the ultimate stability.
Leaving the chaotic burning dream allows you to finally wake up to the permanent, joyful reality of your own pure nature. So the Heart Sutra provides the ultimate theory for waking up from this insanity. But the texts we are exploring also offer tools to interact with reality while we are still practicing, right? While we are still somewhat caught in the dream.
Yes.
Things like mantras. But just like the physical incense, there is a massive behavioral catch to using them.
And this is perhaps the most sobering part of Consultant Benny's entire lecture. He unpacks the actual karmic physics behind mantras.
He uses the food bestowal mantra as an example, and he explains that these aren't just symbolic prayers. When deployed correctly, this mantra literally alters the physical characteristics of food and water so that hungry ghosts being suffering from extreme karmic deprivation can actually consume it.
Right, because normally their throats turn to fire when they try to eat.
Which sounds horrific.
It is. The mantra prevents that combustion. It is a targeted physical intervention.
But you cannot simply read the phonetic syllables off a screen and expect that intervention to occur. Benny delivers his most hardcore warning yet. To activate the power of a mantra, you must possess a pure Brahma voice.
Which immediately makes you wonder about the mechanics, right?
Totally. Like, what is a Brahma voice? Do you need perfect pitch? Is it some kind of specialized vocal cord technique you learn in a remote monastery? How does making a specific sound alter reality?
Well, it has absolutely nothing to do with biological vocal cords or acoustic training.
Nothing at all.
Nothing. The mechanism is entirely karmic. Benny explains that generating a Brahma voice requires strict, uncompromising adherence to the 10 good deeds, with a specific, intense focus on abstaining from harsh speech.
Why speech specifically?
Because speech is the primary bridge between your internal mind and external reality. If you spend your day gossiping, lying, or speaking cruelly to the people around you, you are fundamentally corrupting that bridge.
Wow.
The karmic residue of anger and deception pollutes your intention. You cannot generate the pure resonance required to activate the mantra if the instrument itself is contaminated by malice.
That is a staggering reality check. You want the mystical power to alter the fabric of the universe and help suffering beings. It starts by not snapping at the cashier. Exactly.
The mundane, everyday words you use are the exact dials calibrating your spiritual capacity. You cannot bypass the physics of karma with an impure voice.
And this naturally leads to a very relatable moment of anxiety from Venerable Ivy, the seeker in the source material.
It's the ultimate why bother question, really, Ivy asks. If we don't have these perfect conditions, if we haven't perfected the 10 good deeds and our voices aren't pure yet, should we even bother chanting at all?
It's a fair question.
It is. If the engine won't start because the battery is dead, why sit in the car?
But Consultant Benny's response here is deeply compassionate while still being incredibly grounded. He says, yes, you absolutely still chant.
Okay, good.
You chant to form a karmic connection with the Dharma. You chant to express your sincere aspiration to eventually achieve that purity, but you must remain entirely humble.
You cannot delude yourself. Right. You cannot trick yourself into believing you wield immense magical power just because you memorize the sounds. The mundane, often tedious work of being an ethical person who speaks with kindness that is the non-negotiable prerequisite for the profound work of the mantras.
It really is a complete dismantling of superficial practice. I mean, we started this deep dive looking at how the human body is the actual alchemy furnace and how physical props will never save us.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We examined the critical need for absolute precision, realizing that a vocabulary mistake can literally break the functional logic of a teaching. We saw why hopping on the Pure Land boat is the only logical way to survive the karmic ocean, and how that shifts our internal temperature to the refreshing ground.
The fever breaking.
Exactly. We confronted the brutal reality that our everyday anxieties are essentially a form of insanity, a frantic reaction to a dream. And finally, we learned that the most powerful tools in the universe are permanently locked behind the purity of our own speech.
It is a profound reminder that there are absolutely no shortcuts. The mechanics of awakening demand absolute grounded integrity in every action and every word.
Which leaves us with a critical question for you to consider, based on everything Benny unpacked today. If the specific Brahma voice required to unlock the universe's most powerful mantras can only be forged by entirely abstaining from harsh speech, what subtle everyday realities are you actively shaping or destroying with the casual, throwaway words you're using right now?
It's definitely something to think about.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into these profound teachings, and remember to keep seeking the deeper layers of reality.